Hey, welcome again to another podcast of Wake Up and Dream. We are so excited for today's episode because we get to dive deep into relationships. We want to welcome Yvette and Geo from YGC Relationship Coaching. And we're so thrilled to have you. We were guests on their podcast, and we just wanted to interview them today to dive deep into what their heartbeat really is as they work together. So, we're going to start with their quote that kind of is going to launch us into some great discussion today. So, here's the quote. You can't just give up on someone because the situation is not ideal. Great relationships are not great because they have no problems. They are great because both people care enough about the other person to find a way to make it work. Wow. That is a powerhouse true statement. So dive in, Geo Yvette, take it away and tell us why this quote is so vital and central to what you do.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us on your podcast. We're excited to be here. And Yvette and I have had a huge focus around women and their marriage and really creating the marriage that they desire. And now more than ever, the divorce rate is at 52%. So we really wanted to have a platform for women to come in and really work on them so that they can really have the best marriage that they've wanted. And we kind of started with this quote, and Yvette can kind of piggyback on this, is because a lot of times people just want to give up and they want to really not work. What they say is on the relationship, but they don't want to work on themselves because it takes a lot. So this is why we have this quote. I think it's super important because our goal is really to help women create that marriage that they deserve and desire. And then on the other end, we do recovery coaching with women during and after divorce because they also need a safe place to talk to us, and also a place of rediscovery for them. So that's why we started with this quote.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback and say that it takes two, but it starts with yourself. And we often remind women that, maybe the grass you think is greener on the other side, but guess who you take with you to the other side on the other side of that pasture? You still take yourself. So anything you're going through, your baggage, your, attitudes, your viewpoint on relationship, you may think it might be better, but might not be. And so it starts with yourself first. And so it is the two people, but if you start with yourself first, then that takes it off the other person and you go, you know what, I've got a lot of work to do here. Let's begin here and then we'll work on other things together. But it absolutely takes two people to work towards, in the long run, to work towards that relationship.
So I just love that. I love being able to be with you powerhouse women who I feel like you kind of were led into this because of personal experiences, and you have so much to offer so many women that may be struggling, that especially, I don't know, maybe you guys kind of can attest this with COVID and the quarantine and the pressures of couples being together a lot more, working from home, and that has created so much friction and time that that couples have to spend together. Sometimes it can be positive, sometimes it could be negative. But what do you think, I guess, elaborate a little bit, who you coach really when they find you, or how they find you, or what you kind of dive in first to really get the conversation going to help them work on them and giving them the tips that they may need to carry into their marriage?
Yeah, I'll let you take that part, but I just want to mention, because you said something I thought was key, Kelly, that we're coaching from experience, but I love the fact that this all started 4 years ago, really, because we were in the wedding industry and we were meeting with couples who definitely, we'd seen them, just the relation or the engagement side of things, and we wanted to dive deep in that. And that just grew into moving into marriages, because that seemed to be like a bigger need. And that's when people really reach in their life and they say, there's something not right here. You know, when you're engaged, let's just face it, you're in la la land, which you should be. You should be happy. There, everything seems rosy and wonderful, and that's great. And it's really hard to tell someone that's younger or to share and say, hey, let's work on some things, or here's great tools to have, or wouldn't you guys like to learn how to communicate? And they're like, wait, communicate. It's not until life experiences happen and the reality of marriage really sets in that someone's really even open to saying, you know what, there's something that's just not as great as I want it to be, but what do I do next? So it's been a long time coming, but I love the fact that Geo and I both have the same heart. It's almost like, and I know you ladies feel the same way. No matter what we do, every single time we meet with someone, there's something inside of us that is like so grateful to just have to share. But at the same time, like you see something that can be so much stronger and better. And so that hopeful side of excitement of, yes, like you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be, sad. You don't have to feel alone because you have the answers within. So I just wanted to touch that because it's more than just something we do. It's not a job. It's something we really do love.
Yeah.
Geo, Geo, before you answer, also, I just wanted to clarify a point that kind of folds into Kelly's question is you guys focus just on women. So you're coaching just one side of the relationship, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And I
think that's key, but I just wanted to make sure our listeners got that as well.
Yeah. And everybody asks, like, why don't we do the couple? Well, number one, because we have to start with ourselves. We talk about that. And that's with any relationship. So that's why we also have two sides of it. It's creating that, marriage that you desire, but it's also recovery coaching, during and after divorce. Our goal is obviously for women to stay in their marriages, but pre-COVID, 2018 was actually the lowest year of divorce rate since the 80s. Post-COVID, we're sitting at that 52%. So we're really trying to work with women and redesigning kind of like their core, their paradigm, and having that voice and speaking on what they want for themselves so they can then in order do that with their relationship, with their spouse and with their children. And so that takes a lot of time and it's not an overnight process. So when we, have these consultations with our clients, we really dig deep on three things really is, how they feel their communication is with their spouse, how they feel with sex and intimacy and their level of comfortableness in talking about that. And then the number one thing that comes up is finances and money. And so a lot of women don't really have that voice in any of those areas. And so we really focus with the framework of Becoming Her, which we all are certified in that area, and asking the questions of like, it doesn't matter how long you've been married. It can be a year, it can be 15, it can be 20. What do you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want your life to be? Take everything out of it, time, money, kids, spouse, and then really start being that version of you, because everything else is a domino effect. And that has been the hardest thing for our clients, is figuring that out. So really the first, I would say, quarter of, the 6 months that we work with them, that's really what we're doing, is we're going in deep. We use our Enneagram coach as well to bring that in, to understand who we are in the core and to really start living our life. And, Yvette can also talk about this. Not only is the divorce rate at 52%, it's people in marriages of 15 years or more. So it's a completely different statistic than we've seen in really almost 2 decades. So we really work with those women who are absolutely ready to just become the better version of themselves. And then because the divorce rate is so high, we've had more clients that need the recovery and the rediscovery because they've completely lost themselves and they don't have a place to go to. They don't have a platform to talk about divorce and to really start recreating the best version of them, because they're starting all over. So I'll kind of leave it there because that was a lot.
Wow. So I can so relate, because maybe Sarah and Kelly, we're all three of us are married, and there are moments, there are months and seasons where you're like, I don't know if this is gonna I don't know if I can handle this, right? So how is coaching different than counseling? Because so many people are like, oh, you need counseling, how would you separate yourself and define it different than counseling?
I love that question because I have the same question. So please.
Well, I'll take this one because I've been on both sides. Counseling is more of telling you things to do and counseling you in which direction to go. It's more like, okay, here are the best ways to go about this, and telling you more, whether it's a theory, whether it's a certain training, where, and it's more like, I'm just going to tell you. And therapy is more diving deep into the past and really going into like maybe some severe hurts and wounds. And a therapist is really trained to help in those areas. Where coaching, there is that training part of it, but it's resources, and it's really guiding you through, again, what Geo just said, what you want. Because a counselor has like, these are the ways in which we're supposed to do this. Well, that's a box, and that necessarily doesn't fit for everybody. Where a coach is more, what do you think is best for you? And even though most people start in the beginning and they go, well, I don't know, or else I wouldn't be here. Intuitively, we do know, because we live in a society where we are thrown at us with so much information. You can Google the heck out of, how do I make my marriage work? Well, if it was that easy, then we would just Google, right? We'd just be like, okay, fix my marriage, Google. And then Google would give you 10 things that you need to be doing to make your marriage better. But it's not that easy.
Doesn't Google fix everyone's problems? Come on.
Wouldn't that be great? But no, Google doesn't. So it's more than that. But a coach is really more there to say, okay, let's find within you what is going to be best, because it's your marriage, it's your relationship. You're the one who wakes up. You're the one who goes to sleep. You're the one who's going to be in the trenches with this person. She's back. So it's more guiding you through what it is that's going to be best for you. And everybody's different. That's why when we meet with women, what we think is best, what I think is best in my life is not going to be best what's for someone else's life. And so it's not a mold. It's not a box that we're trying to put someone in either.
Well, and I think the number one thing that the separation is, the therapists focus on circumstances in the past and situations. We focus on the present and the future goals. So we don't even bring that up. And the other thing is, we don't talk about spouse. That has and I think that's where our clients are like, but wait, what about him, or what about her? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with your partner. It has nothing to do with your spouse. And that's where the work comes in. And that's where people really do have the hardest time, is the first few months, because they're thinking it's the other person, and they're wanting to talk about all these things that's for a therapist. And we actually would prefer they have a therapist, because we're not talking about anything in that area. We're really focusing on the present, the future, who it is that you want to be. And now it's time to take action to do those things. And then we create, based on their, really their intake form and what they're struggling in the most, we create that action plan with them. And we're kind of there holding them accountable, but really they're starting to create a whole life that they never even knew they could have, which then that's where, when the work happens and when they do that, the relationship falls into the place that it needs to be. So I think that's also really hard for our clients to be like, but they want to talk about that. I'm like, nope, we don't talk about that. Like there's no point in that. We're moving on.
So do your clients recognize like the domino effect of the work that you're doing in other relationships, and like with their children? You mentioned children earlier, so I wanted to touch on that. And do you also offer a more I guess holistic coaching process for people that just want to work on relationships across the board? Maybe it's not necessarily just a spouse, but just maybe a family. I feel like families and parent relationships and things like that. Do you offer services for people in that area as well?
I mean, it's crazy because Yvette and I have been business partners for so long. We attract also business partners. So we do get, we have, some clients that want to have a stronger relationship with their business partners. And then we have seen recently as well with entrepreneurs having a better relationship with their business and what that looks like, because as all of us are entrepreneurs here, it's the relationship that you have with your business kind of takes the forefront, and it takes away from your spouse, from your kids, and from your life, and really from the relationship with yourself. So although, yes, we're focusing on women in their marriage and recovery, we do have a small percentage of clients that we work with, that we're seeing, especially more now more than ever, with the relationship with their business or a relationship with their business partner. So this work does translate into any relationship in your life. It's just tweaked in the 6-month process. That's the timeline that we work with our clients based on what their 3 core areas are. So, for marriages, it would be like we talked about, like the sex, the intimacy, communication, finances. For your business, it may be more of like calendar integrity and not overworking and not overscheduling yourself, and really having that smaller action plans on what you want done for this year versus what you want in 5 years. And then also, if you are married and you are an entrepreneur, like, and you do have kids, what does that life look like? What is the ideal business, your relationship with your business look like? And we map that out as well. So it really is a great, the framework is great because you can translate that. It's very similar to, how we were taught in thinking into results, and then also with the becoming her. I mean, if you go back, you can rework it in any relationship that you want to focus on. So yeah, I would say that it's just a smaller percentage of our clients.
It's just a
Wow.
natural domino effect. I mean, like you said, if you're working on you and your light inside is just keeps shining brighter and brighter and brighter, that is so going to affect everybody around you, whether you realize it or not. You can go to the grocery store and someone just sense, wow, who just walked by me? I mean, you just when you're giving off just positive energy and you're really focusing and you're starting to see your world in a whole different way, then you just start seeing that everywhere you go. So, and that is a cool thing too, because even though you think, oh, I'm not really working on, say, my relationship with my coworker, right? I'm meeting with Yvette and Geo to really focus in on my relationship with my husband. But your coworker starts to notice it and they're like, hey, what's going on with you? And then that just gives you more fuel and excitement, because you start to realize, because people are reflecting and mirroring off of you, right? You start realizing, I am changing, I am growing. Well, guess what? Your spouse is going to notice that too. So eventually they start going, wait, what? And it's just a domino effect with everything that you do.
Exactly. I'm so curious because I know that the 3 of us, being in Julie Ciardi's program has helped us to evolve and to really dive into what do I want? And like Geo, you were saying, it's not what my husband thinks I should want. It's not what my kids expect me to want. It's what do I want? And for me personally, that was a hard thing to like even go there because we wear all these hats as women. We are the wife and there's certain expectations, whether it's put on us from the outside or internally, our past, how our mom was a wife, all of that. So we have all of that pressure of what a good wife is. And then we are taking care of the kids. And then if you have your own business, you have all of the pressure of that. And where is what do I want in any of that? Like it's just isn't there. Like you don't even think of it. You're not even putting yourself on the discussion to ask that question. Do you find that that's hard for women?
Absolutely. That's the hardest part. When I tell you the first 2 months, it's really like they don't know, they don't understand the concept. It doesn't feel natural. So it helps them get through the rest of the months, but it's really understanding like what do they really want. But because we don't talk about spouses and kids in the business, it's like we really dig deep, and we didn't recreate the wheel. The thing about our coaching program, they get an Enneagram coach and they get the community with Julie. So they have to do the Becoming Her framework as well. It's embedded in what we teach. So not only are they getting us 2 coaches, they get 4 coaches in 6 months. And that really again, it's about, we can give you the tools, the resources, we can build the action plan of what you want your life to be and what that looks like for you. But really the work begins with you. And so, when we do one-on-one once a week with our clients, and kind of, 1 week is just kind of like a Q&A, like where else can we kind of work with you on, but it really takes a village for this. And that's why we, collaborated with Ignite Her Society, and we collaborated with Brianna, because they have to also understand who they are in the core. Like, nobody really knows the Enneagram and they don't understand it, but because of her typing session and then how she relates that to relationships in their life based on their number, that right then and there is already so much self-discovery. That's how we begin. And then we go into the Becoming Her framework and starting on that now goal. So, again, it's as much as they want to put into it, but we kind of don't really give them an option. Like we hit the ground running, and they're like, all right, I'm ready. Like, let's do this.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and also what you were saying too. Yes, I feel like all of us, no matter where you are in life, no matter how you were raised, no matter where you were raised, we go through the motions. We're so taught from such a young age, sit still, do this, but like we do this as moms. Like we're constantly teaching and training a certain way of doing life. But I call that cruise control. We're on cruise control. We're doing what society's telling us to do. We get married, we go to college or don't go to college, we have babies, and we're just in cruise control. And I literally think of that as like, imagine you're in your car, because I don't know why I think of a Tesla right now, but just imagine you're in a Tesla and you can put it on cruise control, right? Well, their commercial basically says you don't even have to put your hands on the wheel. You could basically be doing whatever you want. So you're going to get from point A to point B completely on cruise. Well, when you get to your location, first of all, you're like, well, where am I? Right? I didn't do anything to get here, but yet how did I get here? And then you kind of wake up, because, most of us sleep if we're not driving, right? So then you get to the location, like, where am I? Well, if you actually took off the cruise control, and which we're teaching people to do, put yourself in manual, well, then you look back and you go, well, wait, how do I drive again? What am I supposed to be doing? But you literally got from A to B without even knowing how you got there. And then when you look back, you're like, okay, now I need to go back to the steps, because where do I really want to be?
Right.
So it's like putting yourself out of cruise control and you're now in control. You're in control of the steering wheel, and where you want to guide yourself to go, because you have all the power. You got that big old engine, you've got the car, and let's go.
That's such a great analogy. And don't you think that, when they come and realize that they need coaching, they're at point B and they're like, I don't want to be at point B, right? I mean, life is not pretty over here at point B, but how did I get here? Because it's that slow fade that they're not even aware that, they're losing themselves, the communication, all the things. And I guess the question that kind of is coming up in my mind, because I find this true for myself, is how I think a common belief has to do with worthiness and value, and seeing ourselves as valuable independent of the relationships. In relationships, yes, but just as a person, because I know for me, when I really started to ask myself, what do I want? And I literally had to say, it's not what I think my husband want, what we want as a couple. What do I want? I had never asked myself that question, first and foremost, but second, I had never felt worthy to even ask the question, whether, let alone find an answer, right? It's that worthiness piece.
Well, and I think so you bring that up. I think, again, it's not in our nature to really do that, but when we also group coach in our platform in Ignite, women are always saying, well, I know I talked to my spouse about this, and this is really upsetting me, and this is what I really want. But I'm like, did you really talk about what you really, did you voice it in a time when it's already done, and it was out of an emotional, something that you didn't enjoy or something that you didn't like and you talked about. That's not talking about it. And really having a list of the things that you want, and also have you ask your partner. Like, that's a very easy exercise to do on a day where you guys just block out some time, which most couples don't block out the time, and then just say, hey, I would love to know, what do you want? What do you want? Not what do you need, but what do you want? No, don't worry about me. Don't worry about the kids. Don't worry about work. And then same thing for me. And let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation on what that looks like versus having the conversation based on a reaction on a situation that you didn't enjoy. And most of the women come to us and say, well, we talked about it and I'm just so upset and I just don't understand why. Well, this is why. Because you've not you may have thought that you voiced yourself internally, but they can't read our minds. And vice versa, we can't read theirs. And we start to make these stories in our head. This, like, our paradigm starts going and talking. And I'm like, when they have the conversation, they're like, oh my God, he or she was never even thinking that. That was all in my head. You were totally right. Like, I do need to start having this list. I do need to voice myself a little bit more. And I need to be quiet and figure out what it is that I want. And also allow my partner to have that too. It's a two-way street in a relationship. So there's a lot of small things like that when we coach, I mean, they really answer their own questions, but it is like, nobody really takes the time. The number one problem we see is no one's taking time for the relationship. They're taking time for the business. They're taking time for work if they're corporate. They're taking time to drop off the kids, pick up the kids, do the groceries, maybe even go work out, but they're not taking the time to put their relationship, even if it's once a week, 15 minutes a day. That's the number one problem. And then they want everything fixed overnight. And that blows my mind, because most of our clients are entrepreneurs or business. And I'm like, well, did your business happen overnight? Did the goals in your business happen in a week? Like, no, it takes time, it takes work. And no one wants to take accountability for something. They always want to blame a situation, a circumstance, an event. And it's like, that's not how life works. So you really, that's what's the difference also between a coach and a therapist. A therapist will never talk to you like that. And this is how we coach our clients. Like, this is the realness. We're very black and white. There's no in between. And if it doesn't if the end goal isn't happening for you in the 6 months and you're not seeing progress, it has nothing to do with us. It's everything to do with that. But most women when they sign up, they know it's going to be a very transformational journey, and they are willing to put in the work. And for the women who can't, we just work with them, and that's okay.
Geo, one thing that you said that I absolutely love was that you mentioned, have you asked your spouse what he wants, what he needs, how he's seeing a situation? And that, I've been married 12 years now, and like, I've been assuming what he wants, what he needs. We recently had him typed for his Enneagram 2, which blew my mind and has saved many, many conversations between the two of us. But I've never even thought about, because I feel these feelings, this is how I see him reacting to a situation, and I'm internalizing it and I'm assuming. But then to take it to the next level, just asking him, like, that is, it's life-changing, probably, to just hear those words from him, or prompting him to be like how you guys do in your coaching, in challenging and encouraging the woman to be like, well, what do you want? But with him too, because he's probably in the same turmoil of finances and communication and all the things, raising kids too. And wait, what do I want too? Like, to bringing that to the table on the surface of a relationship takes communication, I think, to a whole new level, because we all have our ideas of what something should look like, or a conversation, or we have an argument and this is how it's black and white. It's not always like that. So I love that you mentioned that, for women to think about as well.
We put our relationship with our spouse on the back burner. It's the last one. Like, most we talk to our clients and the women ignite. It's the last thing that we're thinking about. It's also, we're tired. We're not, and it's not that we're doing it on purpose. It's just not as important. And then we want everything to be like instant. Like, well, it needs to change now. Well, that's not how that works. And for us, even, again, it's like, I don't want to do that. Like, the Enneagram is extremely important for our clients. The 5 love languages, extremely important for our clients. Learning communication styles, extremely important. The world revolves around time and money, and marriage is time, money, sex. Like, it's what it is: communication, money, sex. So if you take the time to say, like, I want to understand the Enneagram, I want to understand mine, I want to understand yours. We also need to understand what our love languages are, like how you give, how I receive. Then I can be a better communicator, because we can't start with communication if we don't even know that. And then from there, we can talk about money more comfortably. We can talk about goals and, like, hey, maybe we do need to cut on the budget. We can also talk about sex and intimacy and what we want that to look like a lot more comfortably. But then it's like, we don't take the time to even have a relationship with our partner, and then we want it to be amazing overnight. There's so much work. And that's where it's like, okay, are you willing to put in the work? And what do you want the relationship to look like for you, not for your spouse? And that's going back to the paradigm. If you ask your partner about any situation later on, 9 out of 10, they'll be like, I wasn't even thinking that. And you're like, oh my God, I spent weeks making this story up in my head, and it had nothing to do with that. That's 9 out of 10. And it's like, well, now we went a week, 2 weeks, a month, we're not even talking about it. And that wasn't even what he or she was thinking, because we just don't start. Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about value. I'm just going to say, talk about value. There's such a value of whether you want to say it's time, money, effort, into putting it into yourself. That brings life something amazing, something tangible, something that you're feeling, versus the deficit of divorce. That's taking away everything from you. But when you focus in on you and put value on you, you're giving to you, which again is going to give to everybody else. So you have to look at it like, am I going to give to myself, or am I going to take away from myself? Because divorce is all about deficit. No one wins in that.
That, you just nailed it. Like, we need to pull the sound bite out of that right there, because that's so true. And I'm just going to speak from my own experience in my own evolution in my marriage. And as an entrepreneur, when I wasn't feeling like he was supporting my interests, I would literally, in my mind, and probably put up the wall. Like, okay, my happy place is over here in my business, and I'll just deal with you later, kind of thing. And as I've evolved and figured out what I am worthy of and what I want, it's become like the wall is down, and me evolving into, who do I want to show up as a spouse in my marriage? And, only looking at me going, oh yeah, you really aren't doing, you're not being her in your marriage. And as I have stepped up and changed my mindset and my beliefs around my relationship, because he really was supporting me. Like, I was creating that lie in my mind saying, well, he doesn't support me. Well, he did. Yeah.
This is like what we were talking about a couple of weeks ago with the Untethered Soul, the passage in that book. Geo and Yvette, have you read that book?
Mm-mm.
It's so good. And it talks about the inner roommate, and how the inner roommate is actually wrong a majority of the time, but you always go back to it for advice. It's always speaking to you, and you can't not hear this inner roommate, and it's always wrong. Like, what type of person just keeps going back to a wrong person for advice? And we all do it. So it's just interesting, because you said, Geo, like 9 out of 10 times the story and the conversation you're having in your head about a circumstance is not really at all what the other person is thinking, but we always go back to it, and we always just take it for truth, even though their record of being right is very small.
Well, that's another good example as to why to hire a coach. Because if you've got that negative roommate, that's what you're listening to. So when you're talking and you verbally say that out, a coach is going to reflect that back on you and be like, okay, did you hear what you just said? Like, that is such a negative thing. But also, I think, I'm such an analogy person, but I think of like coaching as like a trainer too. Like, I personally do better when I'm in group training, workout groups, or I just realized one-on-one. I've been doing Pilates and stuff, and I've been in, it's just 3 of us in the group. The trainers training us. I went to Pilates class, and it was one-on-one because no one else showed up, a whole new coach and everything. I thought I was going to die walking out of that room, because now it's one-on-one focusing. Yvette, abs in. Yvette, your arm up. Yvette, lift this. It completely changed the entire class that I'd been taking, because it was that one-on-one, and she was specifically focusing in on every move that I was making. That's what a coach does. That's what Geo and I do. We focus in on those things that, like, you can't see it. Yeah, there's a mirror in that training room. I'm not looking over at the mirror. I am definitely not looking over at that mirror. But she's able to see things that I can't see, hear things that I can't hear. And that's what we do with our clients too. We're helping them discover and rediscover, like, listen to what you were saying, or the negative thoughts, or like, yeah, the noisy roommate in your head. It's so hard, because that noisy roommate has been there for years. Sign the document, like, I am here. This is my rental property for life. No, we shred that puppy up and get it out.
Absolutely. I hate that roommate, because she always brings in that negative thought of things that aren't even reality, or maybe it's even like a best friend or a mom or a sister or whatever, who I feel like in relationships, it can be a struggle, but then we tend to gravitate to those who have given us advice, marital advice, relationship advice, and they're just those negative Nellies. Oh yeah, he's such a this, and they just bash their husbands, and oh yeah, she's a horrible person, and she wears the leggings when she's running, and you're just around that negative energy all the time. And that's why I'm glad that you just said that's important, to then hire a coach to really dive into you and what you want and what's important. So just to kind of wrap things up with our listeners listening in, what if there's a gal out there who knows they have this feeling, this burning desire, that whether it's with their spouse, a best friend, their mom, a mother-in-law, whatever relationship might be broken, and they're scared because they didn't want to, go to therapy or any of those things, but now they're hearing you guys, which I feel is just a little bit more inviting and warm, and you're really digging into them as a personal person, but they're scared and they don't know where to go, where to turn to. What would you tell her why she's important and why it matters to have the best relationship that she desires, why that's important, and how they can maybe reach out to you and find you guys?
Yeah.
I'll reach the feeling part of that first. And I think it goes back to what Lisa said about worth. And it's like, I get like so serious about this, because she's worth it, because she's amazing, because everything that she believed in herself as a younger person, a mid-aged, older, like, those are all true feelings that have value, that are so special to her. And she may not think it, and that negative roommate be speaking to her, but those are all lies, and that she is amazing. And then the times that she feels hopeless, I get it, but there is hope, because she has herself, and self is amazing. So so even though there's so many out there, there is that hope, because she has her. So that would be my first, like, when you said that, my heart just jumped out more, like the emotional feeling side of it, but I'll let Geo answer now.
I think for me, and this is the great part of having two coaches, is it is a scary process. No matter if it's the marriage, if it's during or after divorce, if it's any relationship that is worth working on, your voice matters. And I think that's why, as coaches, we have been able to thrive and really help women find their voice. And when that starts, that transformation, it's kind of like the butterfly, everything else just becomes so much easier. And the relationships, all the relationships in your life, and the life that you want to create, starts to happen. And there's no going back. There's no going back. It's all moving forward. So it's just those baby steps of having a one-on-one with us virtually. We meet with everyone virtually. We have an amazing intake form that we want to customize to you. We want to know what the most important thing is for you. And if you don't even know what that is, when you have your consultation with us, we get you there. And then we really just explain what it looks like for you, what your 6-month journey looks like, and really helping you become the woman you want to be. So we hope that you come and you book a call with us or a virtual with us. You can find us at anywhere YG Collaborations. That's the easiest way to get to us. We're everywhere: Instagram, Facebook. We're on YouTube. We have a podcast also. Tons of free resources. So if you aren't sure and you just want to get to know us better, we have a podcast every week. We go live every single week, and you can just DM us or just go straight to our website. And there's a intake form there. And we'll set something up on our calendar, and you can pick and choose the times, and we'll just meet with you virtually and see what you want and see what relationship you really want to work on. Even if it's a relationship with yourself, we do get that. People, they're like, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I'm not in a business, but I want to have a better relationship with me and learn what that is. We do that as well.
Oh, I just love this. This was so amazing. Geo, Yvette, thank you for sharing your hearts and your passion for helping women in particular just be and find the best versions of themselves to create relationships that they could never even imagine. I just love your heart for that. So thank you guys for joining us today. And for all of our listeners, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to these gals, we will have all the information in the show notes. You can reach out to them, reach out to us for any further questions, information. So with that, thanks again, gals, for being here.
Thank you.
Yes. And until next time, everybody, wake up and dream.
Bye.